Welcome Kyle Jackson, Senior Director of Business Systems at Seismic, and our very own Stephanie Dwight, Senior Director of Business Apps and Automations at Workato, to the stage. Not only are they going to be talking about how hackathons can inspire innovation in your organization, they are also the last session before Bill Nye, so give them a warm round of applause as they come up on stage.
One of these. All right. What? Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah, how's everyone doing?
Yeah. All right. Good. Well, thanks for hanging in there and hanging out with us in the last session before Bill Nye. I know I'm excited about Bill Nye. Brings me back to like, what, second grade, something like that. Yeah. I wonder if he's still selling VHSs. Maybe projectors.
He's got like a table outside here later where it's just like all VHSs.
I hope so. Yeah, that'd be great. DVDs. Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Kyle and I are going to talk about hackathons that we independently launched at our companies and really the unique differences between the two and our approaches. And so it's fun to chat about our ideas and how we went about the hackathon. So yeah, we're just going to jump into it. So, like Mary said, my name is Stephanie Dwight. I'm the Senior Director of Business Applications and Automation at Workato. Been at Workato for, it's coming up on a year at the end of this month. It's flown by, it's been a great ride. Before that, I was at Okta for about 7 years, Workday, I mean, just the Bay Area, right? So I'm happy to be here and share a little bit about the fun hackathon that we did. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Kyle Jackson, Senior Director of Business Systems at Seismic. Seismic is like a sales and go-to-market enablement platform, if you haven't heard of it. I've been at Seismic for about 3 years, which is kind of hard to believe. But before that, I was at another SaaS company called Percolate, and before that, one called Unruly. About 15 years in IT and business systems. Work a lot with, the big ones, Salesforce, NetSuite, and Workato. So I lead the teams there that do all of that fun stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into it.
Yeah.
So I think first, Kyle, maybe you can kick us off by talking about how did the idea of the hackathon originate for you?
So we as a leadership team have had the idea of doing a hackathon at some point, but it was just kind of sitting on the backlog. And we actually, one of the things that prompted us to finally do it was perhaps a little atypical than what you might be thinking. We had a certain stakeholder who felt a little less loved than some other departments. You know how it is, like sales gets all the love and others are like, why don't you invest in us? So we knew we needed to do. And we actually had an idea, like, why don't we purpose the hackathon to kind of like alleviate some of their like most severe pain that they're feeling and just show them a bunch of love. It's kind of like good PR for us as a team. It will highlight what we can do as a business systems discipline, which was kind of new. It's still kind of new at Seismic, just since I've come in the last few years. So yeah, we decided on like kind of a small scale, let's go like pull out some issues that are affecting this specific team. It was our finance team. And because there's always like the big initiatives that like an executive is asking for, but I feel like there's also often people who are just kind of like sitting doing manual things day to day, and they're not going to kind of necessarily raise their hand or know who to reach out to. And so we wanted to kind of go into that team and dig around and see what we could help with and what we could knock out in a day or two, and to just like throw a bunch of effort and automation their way to make their lives easier.
As I remember, it was a small group of you, right?
Yeah, there was about 12 of us that ended up participating. Cool. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's
how
awesome.
did yours shape up?
Yeah, so like I said, I joined Workato a year ago. And I think I had my very first one-on-one actually with Vijay, our CEO. And I had been kind of playing around with Workato. It was like the second week I had joined, third week. And when I was previously at Okta, we had a hackathon, but it was very limited, the people that were actually allowed to participate. And I always found that odd. And I remember my dear friend, he was brilliant at Okta, but he tried to participate, and actually they told him he could not participate being in business technology. It was only product and engineering. So then fast forward, business technology ended up being in the hackathon and so forth, and it was a fun experience. But then coming to Workato, I was first week, day 2, building automations right out of the gate. And I'm not nearly as technical as my team, I'll be honest there. But it was pretty amazing how fast I was able to build Workato automations between Salesforce and Atlassian, creating Jira tickets, all of those cases, and Salesforce and so forth. So it came to mind, why don't we have a company-wide hackathon? And I wasn't used to, in my past, having citizen developers. It was very black and white. If you were in business technology, you were building, doing the configuration, all of that. And if you were in the operations teams, you weren't allowed to touch anything, really. And so now that we live in this world of citizen developers, and as I started kind of doing my roadshow with meeting the business customers and leaders within the company, I'm like, these operations teams are brilliant. They're building just as fast, just as amazing integrations with Workato that my very own team was doing. So fast forward, I think it was only a month or 2. I ran the idea by Carter, our CIO, and he thought it was great, and I told VJ, and VJ jumped on it. So it's also really nice to have the leader of your organization be your biggest fan and supporter, which was cool. So then fast forward, it was March. I was headed out to Singapore to spend time with my team. And also I procrastinated a little bit with launching this hackathon that I was going to do in February. So then I came up with the brilliant idea of calling it Automation April. That way I could kick the can down the road a little bit further. But that ended up working out really well because I went to Singapore where the brains of the operation really was. I had the idea. I wasn't the one that built it. I wasn't the one that had the great ideas of how to sign up and all that. It was my very own team. And I know we'll kind of dive into that. So one of the other things is, so we launched it company-wide.
Yeah,
we had
pretty different.
Yeah, it was
but cool. I want to do that.
Yeah. That part was fun, and it was really amazing to see the excitement around it. I think we ended up having a third of the company. It's about 250 plus people sign up, 70 teams globally, worldwide, and 44 videos ended up being submitted. So, and then for you, it was the 12 people, right?
Yeah, there was 12 of us between our, like my business systems team, and there's another kind of IT team, and all of us came together. And so, yeah, it was a mix of personas. And one thing I wanted to ask you was, I imagine that even at Workato, there's some people who are less technical or aren't as familiar with the tool. How did you kind of like get them prepped to work and everything?
Yeah, and so I was a bit of a hypocrite in this, in hindsight, and it just hit me. It was just a couple months ago. My team did not participate in the hackathon, which is a little ironic considering the story I just told you. So they were more the mentors and the liaisons of questions. We had an automated bot Slack channel where people could ask questions throughout the journey, and someone on my team would tag team, and they would go through and help. And but we had people all the way from HR operations, and some of the funniest hackathons, like me, myself, and some of the judges, we were laughing out loud at some of these hacks because they were just hilarious.
What's an example of one of those?
God, so one guy actually recorded his hack, and it was like an infomercial. So it was like a really cheesy infomercial, and he probably should have won an award just because it got all of us just laughing so hard. But yeah, so I mean, every type of role you can imagine. SDRs, right? Building hacks.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, even though I had like the technical team, I was like, okay, several of them have used Workato all the time. Several of them were brand new to it, but for the ones that were new to it, they were systems-minded people who were competent in other systems, and yeah, with a bit of like mentorship from those who know, with those who are there learning it afresh, we were able to be quite productive, I think.
And didn't you say that, so like some of your stakeholders that were really excited about it was like your CFO, right? Because he wanted the attention on his.
Yeah, it was actually my boss, our VP of operations.
Got it.
Who, you know, Seismic was very siloed, like a lot of companies are when they're young, and we established a global ops organization. It was the first time there's like a centralized discipline that said yay or nay to any technology decisions or anything like that. So that's kind of the PR component of it. We wanted to, you know, show off what we can do, how quickly we can do things. Like, hey, like we can do stuff fast, we can do stuff right with a bit more time, and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so
that's great. And I know for us, I think we have all hands meetings every Tuesday. We have Pacific time, it's 9 a.m. and then 6 p.m. for our APAC regions. And so we were consistently promoting the idea and getting the executives to chat about Automation April, which is why I also think the support from the leadership teams across the board is really important because of the amount of time that people put into the hackathon. So that was really cool. So how did you execute on this? You were all together.
Once we had the idea, we were like, yeah, this needs to be in person. We were also kind of like looking for like we want to get the team together. It's been a while since, you know, the pandemic and everything. What's a good way to do that? So we had everyone book flights about 6 weeks out from when we made the decision to do it to San Diego, booked a conference room, not that anybody else was using it. And one of the things that we did was like each week leading up to it, we met and talked about ideas because I think it sounds like what you did was more of a like kind of fun and creative projects and hacking for, you know, I guess like camaraderie and learning, and where those were things that we valued as well and wanted, but we were also trying to like actually, you know, build some stuff that we would deploy to production and leverage. So we spent some time pre-planning, like, okay, that's a great idea, but we can't get anywhere near that in, you know, 8 hours or 10 hours. So once we kind of like, we honed it down to like 3 ideas, and then we did do a little bit of effort to say, okay, we'll put these 3 people on that, these 3 people on that, just to try and mix skills and that kind of thing. And I think that worked pretty well. If we had not had the ideas of what we were going to do when we sat down, we would have spent the first like 3 hours debating what to build.
Well, and I think we saw some of the teams where we watched the videos, but those were actually projects that the teams were working on. So it was like kill two birds with one stone kind of deal, which was cool, but also I don't know, it was interesting. So for us, we wanted to obviously use Workato to even empower the signing up. So Wei Zhang on my team, who really was incredible throughout this whole thing, we created an Automation April bot in Slack. And so through that bot, you'd sign up, you would add your team, a maximum of 4 people, and then the team name, and then also your t-shirt size, because we gave everyone an Automation April t-shirt to sign up, which is also why I think we got about 75 signups and only 44 people actually did it. So we probably had about 100 people that just wanted t-shirts. So that was cool.
That's noted. I'm making a note of that mentally right now.
Yeah. And then from there, the automation was built on the back end to assign workspaces to those teams. The team lead would put in the emails within that bot of each individual person. And then from there, once the sign up was done, each individual person got a notification to then put in their mailing address, also their t-shirt size. And then say it was 4 people, those 4 people would get their workspace automatically assigned to them, as well as their Google Drive assigned to them. And that is where we asked for a 2-minute or less video of the actual hackathon itself. So we gave the teams 2 weeks to complete this because of time zones were heavy Asia. But the really fun thing about this was you could look across the board and see multiple teams with people from different time zones. So like somebody in Singapore was partnering with somebody in the Pacific and the East Coast and India or whatever it may be. And I found during the pandemic, like really that was one of the biggest highlights for me, is bringing people together from all across the globe when we're all stuck at home. And I found like that really bonded a lot of people, which was really great.
But you still did it in a lot of locations, right? So like you could maybe do a remote hackathon if that's the only option.
Well, it was a remote. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It would be really fun to do it in person, but talk about executive buy-in.
Yeah. But even if you did it in person in a bunch of different offices around the country or the world,
which hopefully this next one people will be able to come together a lot more. So did you accomplish what you were looking for, the results of the hackathon?
We did, yeah. We shipped 3 kind of things. I'll quickly tell you what each was. One was there was some folks in our finance team who were kind of like finding some reporting in NetSuite not insufficient. And we knew like we really need to have an analyst kind of build it out so that they could access certain reports kind of properly in a self-service fashion. But in the meantime, somebody had modeled a bunch of stuff out in a SQL or Snowflake worksheet, and they're just constantly asking him to run the query and send it to them. So we built a little Slack bot that would let them say, hey, like a / command to run the query. It would pop up with a modal of which report they want to run. They could enter some dates to select the period. It would run the query and just email them results.
That's cool.
As a CSV. So like really, like that's not the permanent forever solution, but it was a fast way in a day that we were able to just automate that, and so that they could self-service grab that data. We built just a feed for sales order approval notifications because the team was kind of finding they get lost in their email. So and then we built a kind of purchase bot, which was an integration into Coupa, so you could get the status of a purchase request, see who's the current approver, so that you could bother them or try to escalate it. And yeah, we got pretty much all of that wrapped up in about 10 hours.
That's cool.
Did have to have a security or like an engineer check a few things afterwards because you don't think about permissions as much and stuff like that. But no, it all worked, and we're seeing usage on all of it.
Cool.
Yeah. How about yours? Did you?
We've implemented, I would say in total 6 of the hacks. Some of the teams self-deployed, right? The operations teams, which is great. And then we deployed a few of the winners. I don't know if Ryan's in the audience. I think he's out there, actually. He was one of the winners, yeah. And that was something that wasn't necessarily necessary, but it was a really cool feature. Really, what it was if you're in a Slack channel and you are, say, with your team and everyone puts pictures in there, right? Eventually, you're gonna have to, that Slack channel is gonna get archived, you're gonna have to go dig for the pictures, you're gonna save individual. Actually, Ryan and the team built an automation with Google Drive where you just do / something like Google Pictures or something, and then it automatically pulls all of the pictures out from the Slack channel and then puts them in the Google Drive, and also shares with those people if you want. So that was pretty cool. Not really didn't really make a huge business impact, but it was a nice to have, as well as automatically curating content in slides for our sales teams. So you put in what the company is that they're doing a pitch for. It will bring in all that content from multiple other systems like Salesforce, ZoomInfo, you name it. So that was also very, very helpful.
Cool.
Yeah. What would you change? What are your key kind of takeaways?
I definitely thought a few times, like, man, in 2 days we could have. I mean, that's probably a slippery slope that never ends. But we of course felt like we didn't quite have enough time. So I don't know. Maybe we would
slumber party
do
it.
2 days.
Pizza.
Yeah. But yeah. Other than that, like I felt like preparing the things that we knew were like in small enough scope that we could execute. That went well. I definitely have ideas about kind of like doing something bigger and more broad, more like you were talking about. But yeah, like how do you kind of see yourself going bigger or better or more broader? What would you do?
I go back and forth about the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to have 2 weeks, especially with time zones and all that. But then on the flip side, it's really fun to like stop really everything for a day or two.
Yeah.
And just focus on that. And that's what I did back at Okta. So I think that, as well as making sure that the hacks that people do, you can actually execute. We had some beautiful videos of their hacks, but once my enterprise architect dug into it, he's like, this is impossible. So they were kind of like fake hacks.
But that could be fun. I mean,
yeah,
depending on what your goals
actually,
are.
One of them was the winner.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be interesting. And then also going through 44 videos that are like 2 to 3 minutes is a really long time. And I would definitely do that, but somehow automating the actual judging. And also I had to recount every single judging card. So having a really smart person on my team build something out of Snowflake or something with the data, because we had a judge last minute come in and then it changed all the numbers. So I had to redo that. So that was a pain.
Yeah, making it competitive in some way is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And we did a cash prize. It didn't matter what country you were in, and it was $1,000 for 5 different categories. And so if you were in maybe where the dollar's more strong, if you won and you were a team of 1, you got $1,000, which is pretty high in other countries. So that was a big incentive, as well as the T-shirts, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I was stoked about the T-shirts. I didn't realize you're giving out $1,000.
Maybe I'll send you one. Yeah, we'll get you one.
Send me $1,000 too. No, but I want to do a much bigger one, a much broader one. I kind of think that like the single day, just like my team focusing to just like kind of like you would a Tiger team, like a Tiger automation team. I'm going to keep that in my like arsenal of tools. But I'm also very interested in like maybe within global operations of about 60 people, we could do something and kind of foster that citizen developer idea a bit more. That's something that I'm definitely looking at soon. Maybe we'll do it April because I like automation April. That's good.
You can take it.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. We can do it together.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly that might be interesting.
So I think one of the things is like we're always kind of asked like words of wisdom for people that want to do this is it's not rocket science. As long as you have the backing of leadership, don't add too many rules and process to it, and make it fun, and then you just learn from there. Like I think that's, and open it up to anyone. That's what made it fun. So what about you?
I mean, I would recommend kind of thinking about the goal or the outcome that you really want, because it might be like, let's just get everyone together, have fun, we'll collaborate and get to know each other more. Or you might have a technical, thing that you're trying to do. And so I think depending on what the outcome you're looking for is, you might structure it differently. But yeah, like anything else in engineering, I guess, like just try it, iterate, see what works, see what doesn't, gamify it.
I'm sure you found this, but what I found is the amount of innovation something like this brings to your company is endless. Especially, we were only, I think, about like 700 people at the time. So I can only imagine what that would be like at 3,000, 5,000. I mean, that you would have to have a big initiative to do that. But still, like the amount of ideas, that was selfishly a big reason why I wanted to do it, is our team thinks in kind of the same way. And so opening that up and kind of see what other problems are out there that our Workato team is facing and trying to solve that we didn't have insight to. So the innovative ideas was unreal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you have any last thoughts, or should we open it up to Q&A before we go watch Bill Nye?
Yeah, I mean, certainly any questions. Who's done hackathons? Anyone else?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Done one? We've got one over here, one over here. Okay.
Question?
And what do you do with the ideas that don't win?
What do we do with the ideas that don't win? we are actually, we're continuing to build those out in our sprints to actually deploy them. Ones that we really, scored high, right? And that we can actually do. Yeah.
And provide value. And,
yeah. But even like the picture one, I mean, it didn't have to happen. But we thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was very creative. All right,
Yeah,
any other questions, or is it cocktails? And Bill, do you have a question? Yeah.
I'm curious about people organizing into teams. Like how, like, do y'all do like pitch decks, like little sales calls? Be like, come work with me. Like, what kind of structures have you seen around those?
Yeah, so for us, we actually had the idea of, which we didn't do, which we probably will do this next year, is, hey, raise your hand, I want to be part of a team, I have an idea, but I don't necessarily have the people to join me. And so having the automation behind that sends to the Slack channel, hey, so-and-so has an idea, who wants to join that team, kind of deal. But mostly it was just other people pinging other people to join their teams. So that's what it was more so. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry if you covered this, but I'm just curious, can you talk about the challenges going from in-person hackathon to remote and any best practices that you would have for that? Because traditionally they would have been in person, but now that we're in a remote world doing hackathons remotely, is there any challenges or anything you faced doing that?
I mean, we were all in a room except for one person who couldn't make it. And I think so we picked the conference room that was kind of best suited to have 12 or 11 people in a room and one person on the screen. And that kind of worked okay. I think you probably had really different remote challenges.
Yeah, actually the hackathon that I participated in at Okta, we were already remote, and it was beginning of COVID. And so, but previous to that, in my past, because of course this last one was remote, we were in person, but I almost find, and that's why we added more time. So if you can do it in a condensed period of time, like Kyle did, if you're in person. But I think when it's remote, you have to have a little bit more time allocated in there, especially the different time zones too.
Yeah, I don't think if we had been all remote, we would have gotten all that work done
that's hard.
without just all being sitting around and look at this.
Yeah, and when I did participate previously, we were basically on a Zoom together all day, which, I mean, we all know that life. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining and hanging in there.
Thank you.
Have a good one.